very skeptical that everyone in the community was very skeptical that these miracles were occurring, that she was actually seeing the Virgin, watched, along with several other people, as she just held her hand in the candle flame, and the flame wrapped around her finger for a full 10 minutes. I'm sure all of you have heard of, fire walking, and people explain, say, well, their feet are sweaty and they walk quickly and all this. Well, sweaty fingers don't preserve your hand, for 10 minutes with a candle flame wrapped around. We don't know, but if you look at all these things sort of combined together, all of these pieces of evidence, there's an enormous sort of picture of these things happening. I mean, you go back to the tales of who were the Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego in Nebuchadnezzar's furnace. That there are all kinds of stories throughout history of people being, not being burned by fire. And can it possibly be that we've all sort of hypnotized ourselves into believing that fire burns, and that's, at some level that, if we shift our awareness or our attitude, we can be protected. I think it is possible. A lot of people challenge that, and I could be wrong, but that's my prejudice. Getting back to these exercises, this first one is a simple way of showing, because when we look out there, everything seems so real that it's hard to imagine that it's really not there. You go, well, I can see the pink of that paper, or the blue of the wall, or whatever. And yet there's a very simple demonstration that shows how adept your brain is at constructing reality. And it has to do with the fact that we all have a blind spot at the back of our eye where the optic nerve connects to the retina. We have no visual receptors. And yet your brain, so when you look out there, you've got two holes in your reality. But your brain does, it's like nature abhors a vacuum, well, your brain does also. It doesn't want you to see two gaping holes in your reality. So it knits in what it thinks is real. And this is an exercise to quickly demonstrate that you're doing this. Now, to do this, first close your left eye and stare at the circle in the middle of the grid with your right eye. And then move the paper around till the star vanishes. Okay, this is where I have to hold it for it to vanish for me. So if you're having trouble, try holding it about here. I'm closing my left eye, looking at the circle in the middle of the grid with my right eye, and right now I can't see the star.
When you say the blind spot, is that the blind spot physiologically?
Yes, at the back of your retina you have an area where you have no visual receptors. Now your brain, as I said, doesn't want you to see this, so if you do this, you can move this, if you do it properly, you can move it into a place where the star absolutely vanishes and you can't see it. That's because it's in the blind spot of your eye. Now, if you're having trouble, if the person next to you is able to do it, maybe they can assist you, because some people start to have problems. And if you're having problems, the thing is, because you just keep moving the paper around in different places, because it may be over here, it may be over here. So don't be too rigid in the way that you hold the paper, where you're holding the paper.
It disappears totally. Yeah, it disappears.
It disappears totally.
It disappears totally. There's like one point.
Well, if it...
It's closer. Bring it closer to you.
Oh! Bring it I just brought it closer.
That's far out.
Well, it gets a little further out. After you've done that, now we're going to do something different. Close your right eye this time and stare at the star and move it around till the circle in the middle of the grid disappears. Now when that happens, I want you to notice something. You can no longer see that dot in the middle of the grid, but what happens is you don't see a hole in the grid. The grid still looks intact. And that's because your brain is assessing what should be there from what's around. And it doesn't want you to see a hole there, so it fills in the grid. And so that's a very quick demonstration that your brain is creating reality. Now, you didn't know you had that ability, probably, but your brain can create this reality so artfully, you can look at a Van Gogh painting or a Persian carpet, and your brain can fill in the gap, and you never even realized it, that your brain is constructing that bit. So this is a kind of demonstration for you can, if you're saying, well, how could it be that something doesn't exist and yet our brains are sort of giving us a hologram, making us see it? If you do this at least shows you that it opens the door and the possibility of it. There's if you're having problems with it, just take this and work with it, because eventually you get it. And the basic key to doing it is finding the right spot. Now, a second exercise I want to show you, because you can go, okay, well, I can buy that maybe I don't see what's out there, but it's still out there. Like maybe when I look at this podium and you look at this podium, internally we're seeing different colors. We may agree call it the same thing, but we may be having the internal experiences different. But we all know how solid this is. You can't deny that. You bump in against it and you can't move your hand through it. So there's a Tai Chi exercise that you can use to show that your brain can also construct the illusion of solidity, and that's what we're going to do next. And to do that, you take your left hand and you clamp it on your right wrist like this. Now what you do is you push up very hard with your right hand, but with an equal and opposing force, push down with your left hand. So you've got all this with all your strength in both, so that you've got all this tension going on. Now don't release any of that tension. All the while I'm talking, I want you to continue to do that. Now, first just focus on the intersection between the two arms and feel all that tension of all your strength, pressing. Now what I want you to do is shift the focus of your attention without releasing any of this tension. Shift the focus of your attention to just your right arm and feel the tightness in your muscle all through your arm and up into your shoulder of what you're doing. Hold your focus of your attention on that what's going on in your arm. Don't release any of the tension in your right arm. Hold it there, but lift your left arm away. Now you notice when you lifted your keep holding that tension. Now you thought you were pushing up with your right hand, but when you moved your left arm away, your arm didn't go up. So the fact that, well, if it did,
We're weird.
no, if it did, it meant that you shifted. I mean, you notice most of the people's didn't. So what that means is that you shifted in a different way. You didn't hold the tension in your arm. You started to change it. So try it again.
What's supposed to happen? Just stay the same?
It stays the same.
Okay, it stayed the same first, but then it popped. Does that make sense?
Well, if it starts to go up, it's because you change your mental construct of what's going on, because you think, oh, it has to go up. Because if you, as you notice, most of people's arms stayed in exactly the same spot, but they thought they were pressing up.
No, mine stayed the same for
Now press down.
and then it went.
Yeah, well, that's yeah, you shifted. And there's the reason that Tai Chi masters teach this is to show you that all obstacles, although you think they exist out there, they exist in the head. So, of course, it sort of adds new relevance. Everyone says, well, all obstacles that you perceive in life are created by yourself. They're an illusion. And it sounds all well and good, but then when you do this, it's like, wait a second, here's an obstacle where you thought you were pressing up, and yet it existed only in your head. Now, what's even more interesting about this is that as long as that obstacle is there, you can't move your arm till you release pressing against what you think is an obstacle. That not only are you pressing against an obstacle that's illusory, but it's freezing up your system so that while you're exerting all this energy pressing against something that really doesn't exist, you can't do something else. You can't be free to use your arm. And this is why it's said that Tai Chi masters, because one of the things about Tai Chi is to learn that to drop all your belief that obstacles exist out there, and that to overcome that. And that's why it said that a talented Tai Chi master can knock a person across the room with a flick of their finger. They no longer believe that reality works only that way. They believe that reality works in a different way. Now, these things, when we're talking about these things, I've talked about sort of two categories of things. One, as I say, involve kind of just things that we can accept don't violate the laws of physics. They may be undiscovered biological pathways. One, we talk about, where something trippy does seem to be going on. You can stick your hand in candle flames and stuff like that. The reason I'm talking about this, I'm not here to teach you how to stick your hand in a candle flame, but I think the same techniques that you would use for all of these can also be applied in a very practical way in your life. And in fact, I'm very convinced, that I'll tell you a little story. When I was on touring for this book, I did a radio interview in San Francisco. And the fellow, there was a guest host. He was not the regular host. And as a consequence, he had not gotten the message that the publishing company had confirmed the fact that I was going to be there. He was sweating it out, thinking he might have dead airspace, that I wasn't going to be on the radio. And I arrived there about 5 minutes before the radio show. And he'd been so nervous thinking that he wasn't going to have a show that he screamed his head off at me. Why didn't you call and confirm? Not realizing that we had called and confirmed. Was absolutely livid and rushed me into the studio, put on his headsets, immediately went on the air. And as soon as he went on the air, he had this new age show. He went, hello, and immediately shifted into this thing. And I thought, well, this is just not right. This is obviously this is all a put on, this sort of peace, love, and light business. And I'm not saying this, just to be glib, because I really think there are people A lot of times when you sort of work in this area, New Age type things, like I'm sure you've